No, actually, it's a hoodie.
Wait. 3, 2, 1 recording. Roger and I wearing the same shirt, and I know for a fact the audio in this room is terrible right now. I know it's echoing, but I figure I was gonna wait until because I ordered some sound tiles, some like acoustic tiles, and hold on, split screen gallery, but I don't think they're gonna be here for like a month, and I hope sooner. And normally I use two of these tripods that these lights are on. I use those to put the moving blankets on, and that's what where I had the old studio above my parents' garage was a huge room, and there was just a bunch of shit I could use. There was like an old Bowflex, there was some filing cabinets, there's just a bunch of stuff, and I mean, as you've seen, I built like a mountain around
Wow.
my desk, and then I just
And
draped it.
now you have an empty room.
Yeah, and now I have an empty room. And well, I mean, there's a bed in it. There's carpeted floors, so that helps. But right now I can, without even hearing the recording, just talking out loud, I can hear it echoing. But
Yeah.
um I was gonna wait till I had everything set up, but I decided to just kind of, like the
Most of
same.
your get most of your guests don't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
most of I guess my logic is how I started the podcast was for years I put off starting a podcast because I was like, I'm gonna wait till I'm ready, and then I just said fuck it and started. So with that same logic, I'm just gonna start recording again. I mean, we've got the lighting up, we've got, you know,
I'm your first guest in your new digs.
you are. I didn't even put up the flag in the black background.
Ooh.
Ooh, this is like this is like Old Testament, prehistoric. It's It's good though, man. My parents helped me. Shout out mom and
Yeah.
dad. Helped me move in. Helped me my dad helped me with the heavy
Nice.
stuff. My mom beautified it like only women can, make it feel welcoming. But yeah, man. Went to bed last night, slept for like 10 hours, woke up off to a good start. I hit the gym, unpacking all day still, setting up this area. My ATF interested corner as always, wires, boxes and shit. But yeah, I last night I ordered those sound panels. I ordered there's 1 inch, like the 1 inch bumps, 2, 3, and 4. I ordered the 4, and this is gonna look like an anechoic chamber. It's so although the audio is shitty right now, once it does get up, it's going to be 10 times better than what I used to have. So it's worth the wait. But
Yeah.
I've been talking for 5 minutes now. Clearly,
It
I'm
still doesn't sound. It still doesn't sound that bad. I mean,
yeah.
you have the mic and all, but I can hear my own voice echoing back off
Oh, oh,
off of
you
your
can.
walls.
Jesus, yeah, they're bare. It is what it is. But for everybody listening, Roger
What do
Williams.
you do?
Yeah, for everybody listening, Roger Williams, author of my favorite book, Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect. And for everyone that doesn't follow closely, I finally moved out after living home for 5 years and finally moved out, which is a huge step. I'm excited, nervous, but mostly excited. And yeah, really, I just want to
Big
hit.
step.
It is, man. For everybody listening that doesn't know, I graduated in 2013. A couple months after that, oldest brother committed suicide. A couple months prior to that, I decided I didn't want to go to medical school after getting in, and for 2 years kind of downward spiraled, and then finally moved home in 2016 feeling pretty suicidal myself. That was almost 5 years living at home, therapy, being sober, kind of building myself back up, and it hasn't even been a full 24 hours, and I'm out for the first time since I moved home about a week before my
Mm-hmm.
27th birthday. I'm 30. I turned 31 right now. Yeah, no, I moved home at 26, and I turned 31 this summer, so almost 5 years.
5 years.
So, but yeah, it's Roger, you'd be excited. It's I'm pulling a metamorphosis. I'm pulling a metamorphosis of prime intellect. I'm pulling a prime intellect. I and just learning how to like optimize my surrounding. there's a
Mhm.
now that I live in my own place, granted I have to foot the bill, but now I get to blast the AC as much as I want, which I love. I love. And it's only like 800 square feet, so it's not doesn't cost a lot.
Which you're gonna have to do if you keep wearing them hoodies.
I know, right? Well,
It's
that's
getting to
part
be
of it.
summer.
That's part of the thing. So, but it's also great because the sun doesn't like bake my apartment. There's no like direct piercing sun, so I don't get radiant heat. So if I just close the blinds, I think I can like pretty much insulate this place. But and this idea came to me last night right before I fell asleep. There's a there's two air conditioning vents, but there's one right there. So the computer's here, the box fan is right here.
I see where this is going.
So I it was like $15 on Amazon. I ordered that like HVAC tubing, that insulated tubing, and I ordered some T-pins, and I'm just gonna pin it to the drywall and the ceiling, and I got two, so I'm gonna have one tube go directly behind the fan, so I can just, I mean, literally,
Dude, when you get that done, you need to submit it to Hackaday.
I will.
That's you know.
And and the second one, because they came in packs of twos, so the second one, I'm gonna connect, and I'm just gonna come and like physically press against the back of the laptop for heat dissipation, and then I can go to the thermostat and just turn fan on. So I'm gonna turn it on and then flip everything and just instantly just jet this thing with cold air. So
Central air conditioned laptop.
hey man, hey man, I'm listen listen, and don't take this the wrong way,
No,
FBI.
I've done crazier shit in industry. So no, don't just like no, you're on the right track there.
Yeah, it's hey man, hey man, the Viet Cong fought off
Yeah.
the United States. Al Qaeda fought off the United States. You make do with what you have, and not that I condone them,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm channeling my freedom fighter. I'm using what I have
Mm.
to fight against the
Yeah.
Rogans.
And you saw my guy has decided to get us out of Afghanistan. Actually, really,
I
no
saw that.
fucking kidding.
I
You
saw
know,
that. Fingers crossed, man.
yeah,
I,
it's like yeah, it's probably going to result in something bad, but there's no way to avoid that. It's just got
it's
to eventually be done.
it's
So,
yeah,
and
it's
as I think Biden seems to be, it's like I'm so old I don't have any fucks to give anymore, and we're just going to do what you know whatever needs to be done. And it's
yeah,
I'm
it
like I'm
yeah.
like rocking
Yeah, no, it's and here's to hoping that happens. That was always my problem when Obama
yeah,
got in office and when Trump got in office was people when Obama got in office, the conservatives would say it. When Trump got in office, the liberals would say it. But everyone always had this whole if we pull out, it's going to collapse. At a certain point,
yeah,
listen, if you eat meat, you're perpetuating factory farming. If you're a vegan, you're perpetuating the raping of the landscape to place all this land, and you're killing that many more bugs and disrupting. You can't. It's Thomas Sowell. There's no solutions. There's only trade offs. I'd rather have
yeah.
I'd rather have a bunch of guys probably around my age, if not younger. I'd rather have them come back here. Yeah, and something bad's gonna happen over there. But just fuck it. Just come back. Who cares?
At least it won't be happening to our guys. I mean,
And I know that's like a simplistic approach, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's what it comes down to. It's them or us.
yeah.
Like it sucks. I don't think it makes you less humane of a person, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Here's to hoping that happens. I'm listening to a book, The Generals Have No Clothes, by David Arkin, who's going to come on next week, and man, he breaks apart really all the deployments from Clinton through Trump. And man, I hope they come home. After listening to this book, I'm now starting to think that book, Base Nation by David Vine, and America Land by Mark Gillum, my three most recent listens, those have convinced me more than anything else that the president truly is not in control. And I don't mean Biden, I mean the presidency. I don't think Trump
Yeah, I know
was.
what you mean.
I don't think Obama was. I think they have some. I think you can do some, but in terms of
Well, actually, I think what happened just now was that you've had like two or three presidents who have said, "Well, we're Afghanistan," and the general said, "No, sir, we can't do that because here's the reason, this is the reason, and all." And
Mhm.
then Biden just comes along and said, "Nope,
Yeah.
fuck it, we're getting out. You get us out. That is my order as the commander in chief." And there's, it's like, I don't care what your arguments are. This is what I promised the voters, and this is what we're going to do. And the generals are all going like, okay,
Hey man,
yeah,
here's
um,
here's to hoping they do. You know, I didn't vote for Biden, but I mean,
yeah,
give credit where credit's due. Bring him the fuck home. Bring him the fuck home.
yeah. I mean, he wasn't even my guy, and I'm a Democrat.
Hmm.
So, but I got to admit that now that he's up there, he is getting shit done, and he is basically telling people who have been, like the fly in the ointment for 30 years. It's like, no, this is what we're going to do. If you don't like it, we're still going to do it. We'll just do it without you, and fuck you,
Yeah. To everybody
very
listening,
politely, sir.
to everybody
So,
listening, today is Sunday, April 18th, 2021. Just for future reference, so people know what we're talking about.
mhm,
Um, yeah, man, it's.
yeah.
I mean, I hope we do. It's. What do you think about all the? And if you can't tell, I'm also speaking quietly because I don't know how much this sound goes into those above me and below me, and I don't want to like bother anybody.
It's actually not too bad. Your microphone is contributing a lot there, I think.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I really need to. I really need to get that fucking that that soundproofing. I might order some cheapo ones just to get something up because it feels weird. I feel naked,
Move
right? I feel naked. That's what it is.
moving blankets.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, I've got
the
I've got them.
the
Yeah, I've got the moving blankets.
Jamie said moving blankets are like the bomb.
Hmm?
And you're breaking up a little.
Oh yeah, no. That's the other.
You're breaking up a little there.
Yeah, that's the other thing, man. Is everybody listen? I don't have internet yet, so I'm using a hotspot tether. So we really are. This is like the White House got nuked, and then you're getting the Roger. I think Roger froze up. Roger. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
me or him. I can hear him kind of. My internet connection's
I'm
unstable.
here.
Okay, it's my internet. I don't know why it would have been anything else. But it's kind of like
Oh,
it's kind of like Independence Day, right? Where everything's destroyed and
uh,
they start using.
or designated survivor.
Well, that's what it is it's kind of like, right, it's the cheesy overused scene where it's like hold on, we're getting a message in Morse code, and it's like the president's still alive, right? It's like right, it's like or it's like what's Air Force One, I think, right? It's something like that. That's what it is it's Air Force One,
Mm,
and I'm on or Independence Day, I'm on Morse code, and that's what this podcast is right now. We've lost all of our sound shielding.
yeah.
The internet's unstable.
Yes, we're
But
we're
it's like
heading into the Death Star and just
hold on. Tommy's still alive. We're getting a signal. It's another shitty
yes.
podcast. He's still alive.
Tommy, use the force.
It's yeah, man. So but on the upside, the internet I've been using since the podcast started was it was at its max upload was 750 kilobits. That's what my on a good day I would hit 1 megabit upload, and that's what I've been working with since December 2019. I'm in a tiny apartment. I'm very frugal, but I'm spending money on one thing. I'm spending money on gigabit Ethernet. 35 megabit upload, which is about 50 times faster than what I had.
So you'll be able
12
to do 8K.
1200 megabit download. So 1.2 gigabit. It's like $90 a month. It's retarded, but I figure if there's one thing I should treat myself to. I mean, I'm using an HVAC system to cool down my laptop, like, splurge a little, splurge a little. There are a couple things that it's worth spending money on, right? It got a new mic, right? Got the microphone over Christmas. That was worth it, right? The new webcam,
Mhm.
worth it. Lighting, worth it. There are some things that I think it's worth when there's a noticeable
Well, you're
difference
putting
in the.
on it's a production.
Mhm.
So yeah, and the thing about doing a production is that there's a lot of things you don't notice in person
Yes.
that become very noticeable when they're broadcast,
Hmm.
or when they're photographed. So yeah, that's taking care of those details. That's important.
Yeah.
That without a doubt, organizing a studio, the thing. I you know uh Life is a series of little lessons in this when you are dealing with things like the performing arts and with photography. I will never forget when I was much younger, in my 30s, did a day trip to Jean Lafitte Park, which is absolutely beautiful park with a boardwalk out over the swamp. And so we're sitting here with our 35 millimeter cameras where you have to pay to develop the film, right? And we're like, oh my God, this is fucking gorgeous landscape. The light is perfect and everything. And so we take what we think is going to be this absolutely gorgeous series of landscape shots and get home and find out that there is a Budweiser can in the foreground of the swamp. And you don't see that until you train yourself to. So, doing something like your soundscape stage and all is very similar, because it's like all these little details that you don't notice
Mm.
when you're just there rapping with someone. You're just
Mhm.
having a conversation. But when you're recording it and broadcasting it, then there's all these little things that all of a sudden are just like really fucking noticeable and annoying. So yeah, it's like, was one of the reasons I got these headphones, because I had these before.
Mhm.
Okay. And they're about the same quality, but the others look like bowling balls on either side of my head. It's a noticeable thing.
Yeah.
So, and these even still aren't like studio quality or anything. They're still they're over ear, and they're on ear instead of over ear, which just works better. Um, Now I'll show you something else about this shirt. Okay. So
For everybody listening,
I
Roger bought another one of my shirts. He's wearing the T-shirt version of the hoodie I'm wearing.
yeah. Um Now, last time I wore the Area 51 shirt, I really liked the Area 51 shirt. I'll wear it many times. Um this shirt, not a problem with the design, but this was sold. I verified on all the paperwork. This was sold to me as a large. Okay, but it is form fitting. It's cut so that on someone my size, it hugs my body like a leotard.
That's
So
no
this
good.
was, yeah, this was actually, I think, meant as like a shirt that you would wear when you're working out at the gym or skateboarding or something like that. And these are things that I do not do.
Mhm.
So here is the problem.
Okay. Yeah. It's a workout shirt,
The,
definitely.
yeah, and being a middle-aged man with a pot belly, it makes me look like I'm about 6 months pregnant.
Listen, man, anyone that isn't a bodybuilder doesn't look good in form fitting. Period. You don't need to be a
Yeah,
middle-aged man. Anyone that doesn't have must form fitting shirts are a binary. They are nuclear war.
yeah.
It either works
And
or
they
it
don't
does
tell
not.
you this.
That's upsetting.
The Shopify did not mention. I mean, this is like the more expensive shirt, and I cannot imagine ever wearing this shirt in public unless I'm also like wearing a jacket or something.
Yeah.
But I did think of something, because you are a younger guy who is pretty buff. I think you would rock this shirt.
I
And
might be
if
able to.
you text me a snail mail address, I'll just send it to you.
Sure.
I
I'll fuck
spent
with it.
I spent $50 to have it made. That was an experiment, and then you can have one of your shirts, which I don't think you have any of them
No,
yet.
I do not.
So
I will
I will
absolutely
do
rock it.
that, and
Thanks,
then I will
Raj.
buy two more.
It's now.
um,
Do you think that they would be good if you got a couple sizes up? Is the actual material comfortable, or is it more?
yes, the material. Actually, now the funny thing is, I haven't shown it to our marketing girl who told me it's like the other shirt was printed by Infusion, and one of the things is you can't feel the the ink sitting on it, and I can feel the ink on this, and I'm not sure why that is. And it may be that you can't use Infusion. This is an engineered fabric.
Mm,
It's got all the fancy antimicrobial and breathable. It's like if you hold it up to the light, you can see through it. It's got about a bazillion little holes in it, which I think is supposed to make it breathable. I mean, I think this was actually a very fancy design for someone who is going to use it to work out,
gotcha.
who's going to do sports in it. Uh, Whereas the cheaper shirt was just a t-shirt.
So
Um,
it seems the cheaper is better.
in I think, well, for me it is. I think it's just, the purpose is just different.
Hmm.
And so um like I said, I'll send you this one, and
Thanks,
get
Roger.
the gold Pharaoh available in the other design, because I
Yeah,
think it would be great. But it's
absolutely.
just not with the form fitting thing where my uh belly bump is like amplified by the
I mean,
design being
listen.
centered on
I
it.
mean, listen, dude. It's it's. I could rock form fitting in college when I was at like 5% body fat. Even now, being 30 pounds overweight, it doesn't matter the fact that I have like 15 years of muscle built under it. If you have the slightest amount of body fat, form fitting is no bueno. Like I don't do it. It's maybe in 8 months, maybe 8 months of weight loss, maybe I can start doing like the form fitting workout clothes again because that's my silent battle on the side. No one's and the podcast is I'm gonna go back to like college level psychopath dieting, and I want to see if I can get back to ripped. But yeah, man, that's no bueno. But I appreciate the feedback and I appreciate the field research. It's so at the very least we can say they run small.
You don't know unless you try.
Yeah, yeah. I mean
So
that's true. It's true. It's man. I'm just kind of trying to think. I'm trying to think of. My mind is still just like spinning with like ideas for the podcast. Just shit I can do, especially now that I have like this room for it. Um, I'm sure it's like beating a dead horse. I'm sure you don't want to hear about it anymore. But this is like the biggest news in my life in the last 5 years. It's
well, yeah, you just moved.
yeah. What you
The
can
last time I did that was in 1992.
what you can see now is
And
my
if I never have to move again, it'll be too soon.
listen, man. I think I've got one more move in me. I would like to go up to New Hampshire to where my parents are retiring and to where my little brother is moving to New England, and we're gonna try to get my older brother too. It's we jumped around a lot as a family growing up, and it's gonna be nice to. I think we all kind of want to get back together. So I would like to move to New Hampshire probably this time next year, and then never move fucking again. Never again. The podcast could blow up, and I could become the next Rogan. If I can get a small house in New Hampshire, I'll never fucking leave again. I hate it. There's nothing worse than physically picking up all of your shit and physically moving it. It sucks. But on a side note, now that I can kind of this shit. I don't know if you can. Yeah. So this is the hard drive system that used to be behind the laptop, but
Remember that?
now I
Yep.
have it off to the side. It's a 10 terabyte, 16, 12, 12, 12, 12, 16, 10, and it's all connected. That's not plugged in right now, so that didn't work out well. But it's connected to one big outlet, and it's got a laptop fan under it. And so when I press the comically big green button on the outlet, it's an outlet by the company Aukey, Aukey. It's got like 15 sockets on it. I have all the hard drives plugged into it, and on the top, I swear to God, it looks like it's like when Trump and Kim Jong-un were battling with each other about the size of their red button. Like, this truly is like the comical. I mean, there's a button that big on the top that glows green, and you press it, and when you do that, all 8 hard drives flick on. There's like blue lasers under the fan, and the whole thing comes up, and it's all connected. It connects to my laptop. I have it all focused in on one USB-C, so I can just and then if you go to the MacBook and you go and like look at storage. This is a 256 gig
Like
laptop.
10 drives pop up.
Yeah, well, this is a 256 gig laptop, and there's a way that you can display it on disk utility that either it's 10 drives pop up, or there's a way that it will combine all of them and it will just say this is your total storage. It goes from 256 gigs to 100,000 gigs. It goes to because it's 100 terabytes. It goes, the bar just like all of your documents just turn into like the width of a piece of paper. It's you have 100. Well, it's like you have 900. You have 99,997 gigabytes available. So
10 years ago, you would have been an entire data center with like businesses contracting for slices of this. And now
I
you just
know.
have it on your desk.
Now it's just it was I mean, it's probably like $2,000 altogether, but I mean overall it's not that much for 100 terabytes. When people kind of like, holy shit, 100, I'm like, it's really not. Like, it is, but it is. Now I have it split up into 8 drives, and so I just have 8 copies of the podcast on all of them. So I just have 8 redundancies.
Yeah, storage for data has gotten just incredibly stupidly cheap. It's when I look back to my childhood and think about what I thought was a lot of data then. uh this is just like uh unfucking believable. In
Mm,
fact, it's been unbelievable for 25 years from that standpoint.
mm.
My first computer had 16 kilobytes of RAM
Jesus
and didn't
Christ.
have mass storage at all. It had
Jesus.
cassette tapes.
Jesus Christ. It's
And the first the first computer that I had disk drives that could like do random access file reading and writing had 160 kilobytes per disk. Kilo, as a, not mega, not, certainly not tera, or, but kilobyte. It was basically about enough to store a medium sized novel. Um, you could just about store Mopi on one of those discs. Not a
that's
longer
crazy.
novel though.
That's crazy. That's insane. I have been thinking about my my NORAD vault and the inside of it, and how it's behind 4 layers of fireproofing, 5 layers of waterproofing, and 5 layers of Faraday shielding. I have been thinking about like, man, why don't I just slap on like, you know, you know, like Federal Bitcoin Bank and just open up my own bank. I mean, if you want your fucking digital currency, if you want it to survive, you don't want to be worried about a Carrington event or a coronal mass ejection or a Chinese EMP. If maybe I should just put some like little pillars in front of it, like the Federal Reserve, and just open up the first Bitcoin bank.
I've seen estimates that as much of as 30% of the Bitcoin that has ever been mined has been lost because the passwords have been lost. And if you lose the password to your Bitcoin, there's no recovery mechanism. It's just, you're screwed. And so if you look at that, especially it's like now it's trading at like $60,000 per Bitcoin, then, there's almost literally trillions of dollars of Bitcoin that for, practical purposes doesn't exist anymore. I mean, every once in a while you see a little human uh like feely thing about, oh, here's a person who has 30 Bitcoins and his password is on an iron key drive and he has two guesses left and he can't remember his password.
Have have you seen the Tim Dillon sketch? Tim Dillon, my favorite comedian, probably the only comedian I like. He pokes fun at everything. Obviously, he's a fucking comedian, but he does these little like short like SNL sketches almost, and they're better than SNL. But he does one called The Wallet, and he's like, it's coming. It's coming. There's going to be a shitty drama rom-com coming about how they got to find the keys to the wallet. He was like, it's going to be some piss drunk New England family. Dad's going to die. And the two brothers who are like illiterate and with a criminal background, they're like, we have a chance to make something of ourselves. We got to find the keys. We got to find the keys, Tommy. We got to find the keys. And it's like, they're going to be drinking and they're like, we can set up a good life for ourselves. We can give ourselves what Pop never could. He's like, it's going to be every trope. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to be called The Wallet. And he's like, and I'm calling it right now. I guarantee you this movie is being written right now. There's someone listening to this show who is currently typing this movie up. And he's right, because
Probably so.
You do see those little human interest stories, right? Here's so and so. He's got $200 million in Bitcoin and he can't remember the password. It's coming. It's coming.
It it's got the everything written all over it that it's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, the someone, probably more than someone is is pounding that out as we speak.
You know what I just realized? So in the old, above my parents' garage, I had the room I was in. I would shut that door. And then there was a bathroom that joined two rooms. And so there was like a little like vanity area outside. And there were doors going into that. But then, and I've only seen this in not a lot of houses, but where the actual shower was had another door. Like shower and toilet was one door, but then the bathroom had another door. So it was like a 2-door bathroom. The point of all of that is there used to be 3 doors between me and the bathroom. So when I would go piss, and now there's 1 door and about 8 feet of space. So this is going to be a balancing act from here on out. When I take it, the listeners don't want to hear my piss stream hitting the water. I just realized that, there's going to have to be a mechanism in place. Probably just editing
Acoustic tiles. You're
acoustic
gonna need
tile.
acoustic tiles.
No, I'll just need to edit that out. But then even for my guest, what if I have a guest on, because someone like you, we're friends, but what about when I have on a guest who I've never spoken to before? And I'm like, hey, give me 1 second. I got to go pee. It's not going to work out well.
And then what do you say? Soliloquy. And then they're doing that, and in the background is.
Wait, you know what I can do? Wait, I can mute my microphone. Right? I can turn off.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Okay. Problem solved.
Yes, there's actually control for that.
We came to a crisis.
You've never used it before.
we came, everybody, you guys just saw that in real time. Take note. We came to a crisis. It boiled to a head. We identified the problem. We war game solutions, and we found a conclusion. That normally takes think tanks months. We just did that in under 20 seconds. So
Hey,
Rand
this
Corporation,
is why humans will overrun the universe.
Rand Corporation, Raytheon, you guys want to hire Roger and I. You just saw that in real time.
Yeah.
We,
Humanity, fuck yeah.
don't let the pharaohs don't let the pharaohs distract you. All right? This is like those fish that have colorful, bright colors to distract. That's all this is. This is a defense mechanism. It shields
Yes.
people from seeing our genius because they see the pharaohs and they're like, who are these retards? But you, the listener, Raytheon, I'm sure you're listening. Heads of Northrop Grumman, I'm sure you tune in every day. You just saw some real
And the
problem solving.
Justice Department.
Justice Department,
So
probably them. Wouldn't put it past them. Wouldn't. I've had on too many. I've definitely had on too many people that I'm not flagged in some system somewhere. There's no way I'm not.
well,
I
I
mean,
mean, if you're not flagged by the for that, then you're not doing it right. I'm that's me,
I mean,
and I'm
listen, man. I
you
haven't
know,
tried to.
and I'm a left wing guy,
Yeah,
so it's I say it's like I like what you're doing. That you are doing a range of characters and giving them the latitude to say what they want to, and uh to me that's valuable. Even though I don't agree with one of your listeners, I appreciate, or with one of your guests rather, I appreciate the opportunity to hear them in the fullness of honesty. It's like, you're giving them a chance to say where they come from, because it is a rich world full of people that we disagree with. And if we don't understand that and that range, then we will have a serious problem.
yeah.
So anyway, with
I
that said, how are you out of YouTube jail yet,
no, I'm not. Yeah,
or do you care anymore?
I'm out. I can upload next Sunday, so a week from today. There's a 2 week stint. I did a two.
Next Sunday. What? It was 2 weeks this time.
This time it was 2 weeks.
Damn.
Hey man, you don't have to like it, but this is the exact parallels to how the concentration camp started. 72-hour stint. Second time you were in was 1 week. Third time, 2 weeks. That's how it started in 1933. Now, obviously, I'm being hyperbolic comparing this to the rise of Nazi Germany. I'm aware of that. So, for any galaxy brains that are pointing that out, you're a retard. But slowly
Not
starting.
really though, but as it as a totally random thing that happened to happen the night before last, I saw Sophie Scholl, The Last Days, which is a German movie, was subtitled. And Sophie Scholl was an activist who was caught pamphleting against the Third Reich in 1943.
Hmm.
And she was in a poll of German citizens, voted the fourth most important woman in German history. And the pollster said that if they had only polled young people, she would have come in first. And her contribution was distributing these pamphlets, and got caught by the Gestapo and was executed by guillotine,
Jesus.
and along with her brother and their best friend. So,
Jesus.
I was like, and I didn't know who the fuck she was. It was just one of these things that popped up in my recommendations, and it's like, oh, that does look kind of interesting. Um, but it was very moving, and it was even more moving to find out after I watched the movie what was the importance of this woman. And it's like, no, she's had a Google Doodle. The uh, her 93rd birthday would have passed recently, and she's been an inspiration to generations, because she resisted this fascist uh, thing that just killed her
Yeah.
and her friends. But the thing was that sometimes that's the only thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And what do you say to something like that?
Yeah.
It was um, like I said, when I was watching the movie itself, I wasn't quite sure who these people were. This little family group, this little insurrectionist group, you might call them. Um, but whenever you see an illustration of Sophie, it will generally be with a bunch of pages flying around, because the most infamous thing she did was, as they were leaving the university, there was a stack of the pamphlets sitting on the rail, and she pushed them off so they went fluttering to the ground as the students were coming out of their classes. And uh, so the chaos of the moment made it impossible to recover them all and to stop them from being read and stored away. And one of their pamphlets was smuggled out of Germany and reprinted in the UK, and it was used in a propaganda drop where they dropped millions of copies of the same pamphlet on Germany in the course of the final invasion. Um, because a lot of what they were saying was that the war in the East is hopeless. We're sending our boys out to die for no reason. It's a catastrophe. And they were convicted for high treason for you know jeopardizing the war
Yeah.
effort. Which, if you think about it, though, is not that different. If you've heard the phrase "shouting fire in a crowded theater,"
Mm-hmm.
that was about in the early 20th century,
World War One.
or yeah, about World War One and the draft, and people speaking out against the draft. That was the shout. Oh, speaking out against the draft
Mm-hmm.
was shouting fire in a crowded theater because it jeopardized our war effort.
Uh-huh.
And if you think about it from a modern context, that's just fucking stupid.
Well, if listen, man,
But
if something can't exist, if 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 something has if something faces an existential crisis, if it can't exist simply because of exposure to public view. Listen, it's one thing if you say Apple is better than Android. Okay, like, you can go out and you can discuss it. There's a million videos of it. And because of that, yeah, there truly is a battle to, it's anyone can say Tom Brady is the best. What he
yeah,
does is he goes out in front of millions of people and shows he's the best, and it's you're allowed to criticize and watch. If there is a third phone manufacturer, TPC phones, and between you and me, they're pieces of shit, and I don't allow any criticism of it. If my thing can't exist, it's not that when it's pitted against Apple and Android, it doesn't hold up as well. If the very exposure to public eyes shows that my thing is a piece of shit, then that means my whole castle is really just a house of cards that can be taken down. So if you can't criticize something or even discuss it, it's, to me, there's nothing funnier than like an all-powerful force like the Nazi Gestapos trying to pick up flyers because not their bullets or their tanks or their dive bombers, but these pieces of paper just stating things, often opinions, can bring down a system. To me, there's something, I mean, there's obviously something purely evil about it, but to me, there's also something overwhelmingly funny about this like unstoppable mechanized force being like, don't look at it, don't look at it. And so, you know,
yeah, it was hilarious until the guillotine
it
came
was it was
out.
hilarious until it was hilarious until you and all your friends died. But I mean, even now,
Yeah,
to me, But so to me, when something gets banned or suppressed, it's, we could argue till the cows come home. Should Trump have been banned? Did he cite insurrection? When when it's just me on this podcast talking about the election with Claire Lopez, or the efficacy of lockdowns with Dr. Roger Hodkinson, when you can't, when you have to hide those flyers, to me, that just, it makes the argument of the censors look so weak. If you truly wanted
You've
to have,
already lost.
now that, yeah, it's, and for all you know, if they let my episode stay up, maybe I would have gotten 1,000 dislikes and people would have unsubscribed and said fuck you. And if that was the case, they would have won, and
Mhm.
it would have been fair and square, and they would look more, it's kind of like, if you have
Yeah.
to, it's, isn't it like a Game of Thrones line? I've never watched it, but I've heard the line. If you have to say I'm the king, then you're not the king. It's like real power exists on its own. The sun doesn't have to tell you that it's the brightest thing. It just
Yeah.
it just owns that shit. It's the same thing, right? Tom Brady doesn't need to wear 7 Super Bowl rings. He's
Hmm.
just Tom Brady, and it's just enough said. So to me, when they ban my episode 289, episode 291, episode 370, episode 411, for all I know, my arguments were completely null and void and actually wouldn't have stood up in the free marketplace of ideas. But by
Yeah.
banning by
Well,
banning them, they make my
they make them
arguments,
more serious
they make
than
my
they
arg
they maybe should be.
they give my arguments more credit than they should have. They
Yeah.
if I do an episode talking about aliens and they ban it, that makes it look like I was telling the truth and they have to keep it. And in reality, it might have just been a bunch of horseshit. So Dr. Hodkinson and I, we might be blowing smoke up each other's asses. Claire and I, we might be stuck in our own cognitive dissonance bubble of Trump supporters. But by wiping them off your platform, which, hey, free private company, I think you should be able to do it. But just from a 30,000-foot view, by wiping them off your platform, you give them unwarranted power. You give my episodes unwarranted
Hmm.
power that they might not deserve. They might be objectively correct. My episodes might be objectively incorrect. By removing them, you're doing everyone a
Yeah.
disharm.
Well, it removed my right to leave a dissenting comment, which I probably would have if it hadn't been deleted because I don't agree with the guy.
Yeah,
Now, I
good,
respect
good.
his credentials,
Yeah,
but I also disagree with his conclusions, and I think
good,
there is an argument to be
good,
had.
good.
You know, so
But it's,
um,
but even that
yeah,
is
I
it's
mean,
removed.
I think that was, but I think the yeah the problem you have is that these platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, have become so large that they are literally unable to police themselves.
And
And so
I
the
agree with
only
you.
way that they can, yeah, the only way that they can do it at all is by enforcing arbitrary bullshit standards where, okay, you said X, boom, you're done.
Sure.
You can't talk about instead of having reasonable guidelines because there's not enough manpower
Mm-hmm.
for the moderators
Mm-hmm.
to look at the entire discussion and ask whether it's reasonable or not. All they can do is say, well, mention this thing, which we
Yeah.
can detect algorithmically, and boom, okay, you mentioned the bad thing. Uh, all right, where is that? So there, we're back in the dark ages when you say a word like masturbation, and it's like, boom, all right,
Yeah.
you can't even discuss it. And how long have we spent trying to get out of that hole with
Exactly.
things like talk about sex and politics and and we still haven't quite managed it with racism. Um, but now it's like you know because we've got these few platforms that are now represent just a stupidly large percentage of our interpersonal interactions, both at the small and the large scale. And now these platforms are being told, well, and at first they were like, well, we're going to be super agnostic about it. We're not going to do anything. Well, then bad things happen, and the larger powers come and say, if you don't do something about this, then we're going to do something about you. And then they're like, oh, well, now that you mention it, though, all right, well, we'll put in this policy. Only that's stupid too.
Yeah.
And you, so you end up in the situation where it's a minefield.
Yeah.
It's like, what can you talk about and what can you not talk about? Is there
Yeah.
like a guideline somewhere?
No, there isn't. That's the thing. Is there
No, there
isn't.
isn't. I knew that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I effectively, sorry to interrupt. I effectively avoided uploading further discussions about the election after Claire because I was like, hey, private company, I'll upload those episodes to Rumble and BitChute. I didn't know. I didn't know that was going to happen with Dr. H. I put up that warning video beforehand as a
yeah.
fucking joke. I put it up as a joke. I mean, fucking hell. Right? It's like calling the Titanic
But I
unsinkable.
got kicked off. I got kicked off of Metafilter for not being liberal enough,
Mm-hmm.
or not being woke enough, or whatever the fuck it was. And again, the thing that precipitated that was, if you look at, Metafilter has this reputation as being like the best moderated discussion site on the internet. They're like so cool. All right. And in 2007, 2008, something like that, one of their moderators, Jessamine, who's like one of the really famous people from that site, made a public statement that said that Metafilter is not a safe space. Metafilter is a place for open discussion. And if you're easily offended, if you have problems, if you're triggered by sensitive topics, then you should probably go somewhere else. Well, in the early teens, that started to change. And the thing that precipitated my departure was a discussion of the Game of Thrones episode
Oh,
where
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ramsay rapes Sansa,
Oh, yeah.
which was like the rapiest episode of one of the rapiest TV series ever filmed. And a bunch of people showed up on the discussion thread complaining that they were being triggered because they were sexual abuse survivors themselves. And I left a comment saying that many of the things people were describing about this scene, if you go through it frame by frame, which was not difficult, it wasn't a very long scene, and you could see that a lot of these things people were seeing weren't actually there on the screen. They
Mm-hmm.
were implied. That
Mm-hmm.
was that was the basis of my comment, was that,
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing a lot of things in this scene that the showrunner cleverly left us to create ourselves, but they're not really there.
Yeah.
They're implied, they're off screen, they're off to the side. Maybe they happened, maybe they didn't. And one of the moderators, one of the 5 people at that time who was a paid moderator of the site, deleted my comment or hid my comment and replaced it with one that said, we don't need another description of a violent rape scene. And I went ballistic because this was a lie.
Yeah.
This was not what I had written about. But this was my introduction to being the witch in a witch hunt. It was like the, uh, you know, I went back and said, this is a lie. This is bullshit. And oh my God, it escalated. And I ended up rage quitting the site. Um, and I stayed away for a few months, just read read it. But I signed back up again because the final season of Hannibal had come out. They have a side site where you discuss media and TV series and stuff, and we had a really lively discussion about the series Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I signed back up, and I was not, I didn't conceal who I was. I said, okay, I was local Roger. I signed up as Bringer Tom, which is an avatar from one of my own stories.
Hmm.
And and the head moderator, uh, Josh came and said, "You can have your old username if you want. I'll open it up." And I said, "No, I don't. I don't want it. I don't feel comfort. I can't be that person anymore here because of what happened. I feel like I have to be more careful and measured, and I'm not going to be the same participant that I
Good.
was." And I could tell he really, really did not like that because I was criticizing him and the
Yeah.
site for
Yeah.
what they did to me.
Yeah.
But uh, about a year after that, one day I just went to log on, and my account was deleted. And so I left an email. Well, what happened was the original founder of the site had signed the whole thing over to the head moderator guy. He was just like, Matt was like, not interested in it anymore. Signed it over to Cortex/Josh. And within about a week, my account was done. And I realized, oh, yeah, because I sent him an email. It's like, what happened? It's like, well, you left a shitty comment. I was like, what shitty comment? It wouldn't tell me. And I realized after a few days, oh, I was purged.
Yep.
It was a purge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, man,
That's how that happens.
you it it's until it happens to you, you don't. Hey, man, there someone made someone posted about how Reddit, I think last month, hired a known child sex offender. This woman, or maybe a transgender from, I think, Britain, who had in a court of law been convicted of molesting a child years and years and years ago. I guess did their time, whatever. And Reddit hired them,
Okay.
and someone found out about it and started posting about it and said Reddit knowingly hired a uh, a child molester, and it was every time it came up on any subreddit, it was getting nuked. And this went on for like a week, where every subreddit, completely unrelated to any new, it was in the Tim Dillon subreddit. People were posting about it, and they've kind of memory hold it. And like a week ago, someone made a post on our conspiracy, and it was like, hey, don't forget, Reddit knowingly employs, woke Reddit knowingly employs a convicted child sex offender. Um, and that person got permanently banned from Reddit. So
Mm-hmm.
someone who is friends with that person made a post on conspiracy and said, hey, my friend pointed out that Reddit has hired a known sex offender, and they permanently suspended him. That guy got permanently banned. It happened a third time, and I think last night it happened a fourth time, to where this chain, people keep screenshotting it, and the screenshot is turning into a tunnel of the first post and the second. And you can see like the dates and on whatever screen it was screenshotted on, whatever someone's desktop, you can see the dates changing as it's like happens
Uh-huh.
more and more recently. But look, man, when
Reddit Reddit is in a weird space because they started off like we're doing the total free speech thing.
they were awesome, they were the OGs.
Yeah. And the only thing that they were really against, and this is where they nailed you, was spam. Uh because I think what happened based on what you told me was that you had your little constellation of accounts that you used to upvote
Yeah,
each other.
I
And
got IP ban.
I suspect what happened is they were able to algorithmically detect that this was a cluster of individuals that only ever upvoted one another.
Hmm.
And they probably had learned to look for that. And one day the computer nailed you,
Hey,
and out
man.
came the guillotine.
Hey, man.
Okay. Um,
Private company. They're private
yeah.
company. They can do
But
that.
that was the only thing they cared about. It's like they didn't care about kiddie porn. They didn't care about
Yeah.
anything else until the government came in and said, no, you need to care about these things.
Yeah.
And the thing about their spam response is they were always very consistent about that and very open about it. It's like when you create your account, there's a paragraph there that I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you read several
Mm-hmm.
times that says don't do this shit
Don't
that
do
you
this.
did.
Don't.
Okay. But the other stuff they've responded to very sporadically and not consistently because it's really not their thing. And they are obviously not comfortable with it. But on the other hand, they want to stay in business. So they've like accommodated the authorities to the extent that they have to, but not any further for the most part. And the thing is, though, the authorities come and go, and there's different countries involved, and so it's gotten really weird in in that space, where it's just like, is sexting bad? Is well, they've also always kind of been against doxing,
Mm-hmm.
so to their uh credit, that's not like a new thing that they've been against, but the you know, the whole way that they have responded to the new things that they're banning people for has been very weird and inconsistent and difficult to document. And that's true of all of these platforms because it's like they're reacting. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. um, Even Twitter, uh, which is like, how do you fuck up things in 160 characters? Well, I guess now it's 240 characters, but they're like getting the range or the lay of the land. It's like they don't know quite where they stand. But these entities are all now the size of a government. They're like countries. They're if you look at Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, then except for the fact that they don't actually have geographical land,
Roger. I think we
but
lost Roger.
they
Oh, he's back.
yeah okay, I don't know what was lost there,
No, you're good.
but
You were saying they don't have geographic land.
yeah, but their populations are comparable to the size of a country, each of them.
Yeah.
And they're learning how to govern themselves. They're figuring out, they've got, if you got 100 million users, and now but you're just now figuring out how you're going to govern yourself, uh you're in a sticky wicket. You got a bit of a problem there that you need to kind of solve quickly, because the whole world is watching, and you're a significant part of it. Everyone's staring at you. And I think all of these platforms are kind of in that barrel, just like trying to figure out, their original thing was to make money and to connect people and to make money connecting people and selling them ads.
Mm-hmm.
All right, basically. So they're like, uh, but now they have all of this private information, which television networks never had that. And now each of these things is the size of a television network from the 60s or 70s. But they have all this private information too that they can leverage if they want to. But are they supposed to? Can they? What will happen to them if they do? These are all things that are being worked out as we speak here in 2021. Uh, none of this is in set concrete yet. And the thing is, these are all actors that were originally pretty bad. Even Google, it started out with the, their slogan was "Don't be evil." About the time of the IPO, I joked that they dropped the word "don't."
Yeah. Yeah. They're
Only it's not a joke anymore.
Yeah, it's not a joke when they're supplying firewalls to China, who has 2 million people in concentration camps. Gets a little
Yeah,
hairy.
it's yeah, and they're like, well, no, you can't tell people about this, even though you're one of the largest sources of information for random people looking shit up in the world, or we won't do business with you anymore. So it's like, okay, so China says don't tell people about the Uyghurs and what we're doing with them, and does that mean Google doesn't serve search results about the Uyghurs in the United States?
Gets a little hairy. Hey Roger, keep talking. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. We're gonna test the microphone mute.
Well, hopefully this won't take as long this time because there's only one door instead of
Only one
three.
door. Hey man, we're cutting the middleman. All right. Just like Google cutting out don't. We're cutting out the middleman. All right. I'm gonna mute it. You hold
Yeah,
it
it doesn't
down.
change anything. It's just a teeny little change. Yeah, it's
All right.
like
We're gonna try we're gonna
it's
try the we're gonna try the mute. 3, 2, 1.
and if you are looking for a copy of my book, The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, then I suggest that you go to lulu.com, which is the original publisher, instead of getting it from Amazon, because you'll have to pay the same price because the contracts that everyone signs require that. But if you get it straight from Lulu, then I get more of the money because I get the money that would have gone to the whole book publishing industry instead of it going to Amazon and everybody else. Yeah, if you're going to order it, as I know it's a little more inconvenient, but please consider doing that. And meanwhile, I'm going to wait for our host to tinkle. Oh, he's muted. In his old studio, he didn't do that. Uh, so we won't know until he shows back on the video that he's coming back. And for anyone who's curious, I have been working on the transmigration of Prime Intellect, the sequel. It is actually having progress for the first time in many years. And last week I was actually rather emotional about that. It was something I had been hoping for, but not expecting for a very long time. Uh, but I have done another couple thousand words on it, and at the rate that I did on the curators of a couple thousand words a week, I would expect Topi to be done by the end of 2021. And if that happens, TPC will be one of the first places you hear about it. And Tommy won't know that until he goes back and looks back at this podcast. Oh, here he is.
What were we saying?
Oh, nothing. Nothing
Could
important.
you hear me?
No, you were muted.
Okay, it'll be I'll have to find out. I don't know whether or not I know you can't hear me, but I don't know whether or not my computer kept recording. So I'm gonna have to find that out.
Yeah, I know. I noticed on one of the other recordings you mentioned it's like your dad was revving his engine in in the garage, and on my end it was like, well, not that big of a deal. But then when I listened to the podcast as it was recorded, it was vroom, vroom, vroom.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like,
My dad,
damn.
yeah, my dad had an old British sports car, like, I mean, like 6 or 7 feet directly below me, and he was testing it out as I was doing a podcast, and like the room was shaking, and I can't help but think it was intentional. Can't help but think my dad wanted to leave his footprint on one of my episodes. It's weird because
No, parents don't do things like that.
it's weird. It's weird because I can go back to episodes and I can
Just ask them.
yeah, I can go back to episodes and I can hear my parents talking. If I put in headphones, I can hear my mom and my dad. I can hear my mom vacuuming. If I go really far back, because I put my dog down last May, so if I go back to the first like 100 episodes, I can hear Oscar barking. It's weird. It's becoming like an odd time capsule. But to what you were saying is, you and then my friend who's never been on the podcast, but I've known him for most of my life. My friend David, middle school, high school, college, we lived together. He's one of my best friends, but he is more like he's farther left than you, and hyper intelligent guy. I mean, intimidatingly intelligent, and he's a wonderful person. But on top of you, I sent him the fact that I was banned for having on Hodgkinson. And you both obviously don't know each other, and it was independent of each other, but you both kind of stated the same thing, which is how I've tried to, I'm always trying to break out of my own bubble of cognitive dissonance. Even when I have on my fellow conservative friends, you'll probably hear me say, I'll be the devil's advocate, just because if we're not doing that, then we're not getting anywhere. Like we might as well just start like sucking each other off, because like there's no discourse going on, right? It turns into this room. It just turns into an echo chamber. That's what it turns into. And there's nothing of value there. So, but he said what you said, and I have to, man, it looks like there's drywall on my computer. He said what you said. That's not what you guys said. You both said that, I think these platforms are so big right now that no, it can't be discounted that there might be some nefarious intentions, censorship of political ideas they don't like. But to play the devil's advocate, it might be that these companies are so big and they're thousands of hours of video a second is being uploaded that you kind of have to go black or white. It's like, think about World War II. I mean, the world is on fire. So what did we do? FDR's War Powers Act. Hey, everybody, you're working on jet engines and tanks now. If you're Asian, you're going into an internment camp in the middle of Nevada. Hey, Leo Szilard, you just came over here. What I love about FDR is whereas Truman was very hesitant about dropping the bomb or whether or not we should go forward with it. In 1941, when FDR learned about that there could be a bomb built from uranium, that motherfucker didn't hesitate. There was no like, should we do it? Apparently FDR was like, I'm sick and tired of war. Put it forward. And he was like, build the bomb. That's what I love about FDR. A lot of people don't know that. Is FDR just like straight, even before we were in the war, before Pearl Harbor, FDR was like, they were like, this bomb could be big enough to blow up a city. FDR was like, do it, build it. I don't give a fuck.
Build it.
So, but the point is, so let's look at FDR's, right? You just came out of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. You get bombed in Pearl Harbor. Hitler has invaded Europe. Japan has now declared war on you. Put all the Japanese people in internment camps. Get everyone working on the war effort. There's a draft. There's going to be censorship, and we're going to build a uranium bomb. There's not a whole lot of discretion, right? It's not Desert Storm where you can do a surgical drone strike or you can do a sniper on one person. I mean, the world is at war. It's just kind of, it's women, children, and men. It's like, sorry, you can't get into the nitty gritty. It's the only way you can deal with volume like that, right? So, whereas like we firebombed Dresden, it's like, yeah, a lot of women and children, about 100,000 died. But we're mobilizing these forces. We're taking on a tyrannical dictator that is incinerating the Jewish population. Like you're gonna get caught up in the crossfire, and
Well, we didn't really know that until after the
No,
end of the
no, we
war,
didn't.
though. There
Some
were
in,
rumors, there was some
some
intelligence, but
some
it was
intelligence showed.
doubted.
Doubt.
It was,
Nonetheless, we knew that they were invading Europe and killing everybody. Nonetheless,
yeah.
we knew that. That was no question.
Well, they were invading Europe for sure. That was,
That's what I mean.
but the death camps were something that we didn't
Yeah.
reliably know about until after the end of the war.
Point being is I'm saying all of this as an anti big tech conservative. I'm giving this whole benefit of the doubt, playing devil's advocate and stepping out of my bubble of cognitive dissonance that they censor me because I'm a white Trump supporter. Maybe it's just that we're in a brave new world. We're in a new frontier of 7 billion people being connected to each other at light speed. There's a global pandemic. There's a hotly contested election. There's nuclear weapons as always. We got China trying to go into Taiwan. It might be that the amount of traffic is so big that whether or not COVID's a bioweapon, whether or not the election was stolen, whether or not China's going to invade Taiwan, whether or not Moscow is working with Snowden, it might be that the volume of shit is so large that you kind of just, it's almost like the king has to lay down a decree. And it's like, you say this, you're banned. You do this, you're not banned. And it's not perfect. And again, I'm saying this as someone that doesn't want to believe any of that. I do think that they're doing targeted things, but to at least, Voltaire, the sign of an intelligent man is someone that can entertain an idea without believing it. I can see that as an argument. We're, it's a this has never existed before. I mean, maybe consolidation of TV channels, maybe consolidation of radio, but everyone, even that was like scheduled programming. It was at 6 p.m. and you couldn't contribute. It was a monologue. It wasn't a
Yeah,
dialogue.
it was one way.
Now that everyone has
Yeah.
this and everyone can, I can see that argument and I don't agree with it. It's very easy for me to, you know, hey, I wrote the president a letter. Why didn't he respond? And it's like, what do you mean? He can't. It's very easy for me to get caught up and say, this is, I'm in my own drama, right? I just moved out of my parents' house. I just had the 7-year anniversary of my brother's suicide. I got into med school and turned it down, and I'm building a podcast. I've secured investment money. I make my own designs. I'm doing this whole thing, and I have to get all these guests, and I don't have a team behind me. I'm learning the science of acoustics and internet connections and lighting. Like, I have to email guests, and if I can get them, can I download their audiobook? Do I do it while I'm listening? And I can, I have an old laptop, and I'm cooling it with an HVAC system. Like, the whole thing is just all the while in the middle of a pandemic. Like, so it's very easy for me to get caught up in my driver's
The
seat of my own drama and to look at the outside world and be like, you're censoring me, you're fucking up my personal journey. This isn't, the world isn't Tommy's story. This isn't the Tommy show. This isn't the Truman Show. There are billions of intersecting and affecting and counter affecting storylines. And it might just be as simple as, dude, YouTube isn't censoring you, Tommy. They don't even know who the fuck you are. You're in one quadrant of one section of one computer that scans things uploaded from the East Coast on the even days of the month. Like, it might just be that, It might be that they are using the chemotherapy approach. A healthy cell dies during chemotherapy. The healthy cell doesn't know that it's part of a bigger organism that's using chemo to take out cancerous cells. It's just like, hey, why did you kill me? So I know I'm ranting, but
No, but it's a good rant. Actually, I think you're on point. That
thank you, sir.
I think that the whole problem with these large platforms is that the only way that they can deal with what they've been told by a larger entity is a threat is to take a black and white approach to it and shotgun and
Mm,
just blow away anything that looks like part of the threat and say,
sure.
okay, we did what you told us, Mr. Government Guy.
Sure.
uh, and you know when any reasonable person looks at the your podcast that got banned, it was like you were giving the guy a platform, but you were also challenging him a little and just like asking him to justify himself. It wasn't like you were just going, oh yeah, this is the truth, but one final thing. It was like, no, here is a guy who presents himself as an expert. If you don't think he is, show up in the comments and tell me why not. And but just because the subject was mentioned, you got shit canned. And I think that was an overreaction. But I also look at Google. Google is actually, I mean, they really fucking dropped the word don't. Um, I mean, our marketing girl, the same one who, by the way, really loved the Area 51 shirt. I didn't get to show her this one because she wasn't in the shop when it arrived. But she's said, there's part of her that always wanted to work for Google because that's like the in her profession, that's like you know it used to be if you were in
Y-
computers working for IBM. uh, but she also said, that they have really horrible customer relations, which is like they basically don't have customer relations at all. So if you get a bad comment that tanks your ratings, there's nobody you can call. There's no human being that you can call to have this educated or to complain about it or anything. It's just like, no, they just don't do that.
yeah.
That's so it's about, as a business, a lot of it is about avoiding mm, getting any bad ratings at all, because once you have one, there's no way to ever get it expunged, even if it is completely unfair. And I think, that, well, we say, well, all right, yeah, our business, they're worth millions of dollars. It's like, fuck them, right? But the same is true of individuals in cases like what happened to you. It's like you're just trying to put on a show to do a good job. And the ban hammer came down, and there's no one to complain to. There's no recourse because Google doesn't do that. They just like, nope, we are. And 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 I think that that is a thing that really needs to be challenged in court at some point, because you can't do business that way. I mean, the fact that they're able to do business that way and get away with it is basically because they're so big,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
uh, they have such a huge presence. But no, seriously, you can't fucking do business that way. I can't do that.
Well, they
I would get
can.
sued into the fucking ground if I did that.
So I
So,
I think you'll see my counterpoint now to where I'm asking you, Roger, to play the devil's advocate. I think and if I may, I think you might perhaps see my concern with why they took down Parler and Amazon Web Services dropped.
mhm.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, why they took down was it? Yeah, it was Parler. Why they took down
It
Parler.
was Parlor.
You see my concern with that because it's like, okay, you can't do business this way. I don't think the government should step in, private company. Your corporation's so large that you're dealing with hundreds of billions of impressions a moment that you can't get them all. So naturally, you know, the free market takes care, and another company pops up and says, "Hey, we can do it better." I think you might now see My concern, just like I now see your point, it's too big. You just kind of have to rule by decree. Well, now it gets concerning because another company does pop up and says, hey, free speech, we're here for it. You can say whatever the fuck you want, pro Trump, anti Trump, whatever. And then they destroy it by kicking him off Amazon Web Services. It's like, well, now you guys aren't allowing for dissent. And that
Well,
is my concern.
and you are right there. I don't like the way that that was done because that smells an awful lot like what was done to insects. That it was just
It feels like
using economics to do what the law really couldn't or shouldn't have
it
been
was
able to do.
that should they
They
should be
should have
hit
been
with
able.
they should be hit with antitrust for that, right?
Yeah. No, Parlor should have been allowed to run until they ran over a rail, which they probably would have within a month or two, and then hit with the law for doing something blatantly illegal, like organizing an insurrection or something. Uh, but for the businesses to cut off their air the way that they did uh, was extremely disquieting because the thing with that is that that's extra legal and there's no checks or balances on it. It's just a
Yes.
thing, uh, and the thing is, well, it's like when Brent Scott's banker came to him and said, well, we got this letter that we're not legally supposed to be able to show to you, but it says that you are funding terrorism
Yeah.
through your BDSM porn, which is a laughable thing.
Yeah.
It's laughably stupid. And uh, he's like, what can I do about this? And it's like, well, I don't think you can do anything about it because I'm not even supposed to be telling you that this is what happened. I'm breaking the law by showing you this letter that
Yeah.
was sent to me. All it tells me is I can't do business with you anymore.
Yeah.
And when you have things like that going on, that's not legal. That's not the law.
Yeah.
That a law, horrible law. That's the Patriot Act, which never should have been passed, which they swore up and down on a stack of Bibles would never be used that way. And here it is, 10 years later, being used exactly the way that we were warned it could be misused against people who are clearly not terrorists, but oh, they're people we don't like.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? People you don't like have free speech too. That was the whole fucking point of the First Amendment. And if you have a problem with people you don't like having free speech, you live in the wrong goddamn country.
Yeah.
So,
It's
uh,
it's that you gave that example perfectly well. For anybody listening, check out one of Roger and I's early episodes. I think it's a history of pornography from the 1700s to present, and this is what's discussed in the latter end of that conversation. But it's again that this is my concern when I see things like the idea of enforceable COVID passports. To me, it looks like the Patriot Act. I swear this will never be used for political dissonance. This is just for the vaccine.
yeah, it's,
you
yeah,
know,
and you're right. Because anytime you create powers like this that have these broad sweeping general powers, they get misused. I mean, it's ever so it has been and ever so it will be. Uh, and you know, I'm yeah, yeah.
Raj. I think Raj.
They,
Oh, he's
yeah.
back.
Hey, yeah. You've been blinking out a little bit too.
Yeah,
Always back in the
it's my
picture a
internet.
second.
It's my internet. It's not yours. It's definitely my hotspot tethering. It's yeah, but
Yeah,
It's
some trucker comes by and keys up his CB, and it's like,
it's man, yeah, it's definitely fucked. But it's
there you go.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you were cutting out a little bit
Oh
there.
yeah,
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 you're in the low bandwidth zone there for a couple seconds. Uh, no, but it's like I don't like these people. They're horrible people. They're cheaters. They don't like freedom.
yeah,
They only like freedom as long as you're free to do what they would do anyway.
yeah,
And fuck that. That's not what this country was about. This is the founders of this country recognized that there would be a range of expression, some of it disquieting, and they understood that. That was like to them, they they fled Europe because dissent was not allowed and because wrongthink was punished in in some cases by draconian ways. Uh, in fact, and sometimes by death. And they were like, no, we're not going to be like this here. We're going to be able to have a discussion. But you can't have a discussion if you're kicked off the platform where the discussions occur because you said something that offended somebody.
yeah,
That that's not a thing that works.
yeah. And just like I said to you last week in the text, is you know if we allow things to be kicked off that we don't like, you know, election fraud, COVID lockdowns, whatever it is, it's on one hand, again, are we just on a new frontier and these are huge corporations with massive volumes of data? Sure, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. But even that, I can only give that benefit of the doubt for a finite period of time, maybe the rest of 2021. Because after that, that benefit of the doubt will be will be abused no different than the Patriot Act. They will now say, hey, these people give us the benefit of the doubt. And what you're going to see is, the founder of Black Lives Matter who bought, a couple million in real estate, which, hey, I'm all for. Go hustle, go get yours. But what you are now seeing, as on Twitter, you're not seeing white conservatives like myself getting banned. We've been getting banned since before it was cool. You are now seeing members of Black Lives Matter. You are now seeing prominent members of the black community, not that they're a monolith, coming out and talking online about how much this is horseshit, because a lot of them did huge charities to raise money for BLM, for the family of George Floyd or whoever. But now they are getting kicked off Twitter permanently. Now they are getting permabanned from Facebook for criticizing the founder of Black Lives Matter. So you're now having black liberal activists being permabanned for criticizing BLM. We're going to reach a tipping point because now you're not just getting the conservatives. Now you're getting members of, quote unquote, your side. You could see how it gets slippery. What happens when another Trump gets in power? And they say, and he leans on the 5 CEOs of big tech and says, I don't want to see any bleeding heart stories about illegal immigrants. I don't want to see any more coverage of unarmed black men getting shot. What happens when you upload a video of a body cam of a cop killing George Floyd and your channel gets permabanned because there's now a Trump in power? Well, now that machine is in place and now its guns are pointing at you. That is the concern. What happens when you do an anti-war march like Vietnam? What happens when the World War I don't yell fire in a crowded theater? What happens when they use that and say, hey, no more saying defund the police? It'll come back to you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's,
Yeah, no, it's a very bad look all around, and the thing is that the world is complicated, and when you are one of these big entities, and you are, they have no reason to crack down on any of this. All they want to do is serve you ads.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they can put an ad in front of your eyes, they don't care
Don't give a
what the
fuck.
content is. But they're reacting to the government
Mhm.
and social forces. And if the government tells them, well, you can't say this,
Yeah.
whether it's true or not, then uh well, they want to serve ads. So if the government tells them we're going to take away your ability to serve ads, then they're going to do what the government tells them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was the thing, with the Sophie Scholl story. That it's they were telling the truth that the war on the Eastern Front was essentially lost. This was in late 1943. That young men were being sent out to die for no damn reason, and the whole thing was a waste of life and effort. And the Reich came down on them like a ton of bricks and executed them for their efforts. But that's really not any different from the sort of thing we're talking about. It's just, well, right now, no one is facing the guillotine because of it, but so far,
So
you
far.
know, um,
Yeah, man. It's the concern is what happens when Trump Jr. gets into power. And I say this as someone that voted
mhm.
for Donald Trump the second time. To anyone right now that maybe applauds people like myself or Alex Jones getting suspended from YouTube, the guns are going to turn on you, right? It's what Ed Snowden warned about,
Mhm.
turnkey tyranny. Said the system is in place to eradicate any terrorist. Sure, that's a good thing. But when we build up a surveillance state in a nation where new leaders can be elected in that maybe aren't foreseen, we give the power of the nuclear weapon to an FDR, a Harry Truman, a Dwight Eisenhower, level-headed, uh, real. What word am I looking for? Just good heads of state, good leveled, measured individuals. What happens when you fast forward and you have Donald Trump tweeting my red button's bigger than yours, you know? So just like nuclear weapons, we're now getting at a point where media is so consolidated that like Roger, you said in your comment that was shadow banned, it gets dangerous when there's only 5 companies where 5 CEOs can meet in a room, and it doesn't need to be official. It doesn't need to be above board. It doesn't need to be on paper. It can just be a wink and a nod. Well, you know, what happens when Alex Jones becomes president, which, like it or not, is technically a feasibility. He's a U.S. citizen. He
Yeah,
doesn't have a
given what happened in the last few years,
well,
yeah, I
well,
could
no,
live to
but
see that.
no, but seriously, he's not a felon, and he was born in the United States, no different
Hmm.
than you. So this power
And he's
of
over 35 years old, so there you go.
so this power to knock off any conservative channel you don't like. James O'Keefe recently permabanned. Well, what happens when Alex Jones comes into power, or who I would imagine is probably going to run in 2024, DeSantis? If you don't like him, what happens when he comes into power and all of a sudden this system that has been slowly, the frog has been boiling. We have socially accepted that people just
Mhm.
get permabanned from big tech. We just, you know, they're private companies, sure, but in a time of a pandemic when you legally cannot assemble, they are the new public ground. They are the town square. And we're kicking people off and just saying, well, he's a fucking alt-right conspiracy theorist. What happens when a far-right guy gets into office and now he kicks off anyone who talks about global warming or who talks
Well,
about,
we're talking about actual Nazis. This is what the actual Nazis did.
well,
They
that's what I
came in
mean.
being like we're going to be all reasonable and shit, and it's like we're going to be tough but fair and everything. And then when they got in power, they started telling people you can't broadcast this. if you
Mhm.
broadcast this, then we will shut down your transmitter. We will send the cops in.
Yeah.
And uh, the tech companies are in a similar situation. If the government comes in and tells Facebook, you can't allow this, and on pain if we will disassemble your network and shut your company down, then they got two choices. And the one that they will pick, being a company, is they won't broadcast that shit anymore. They will
Mhm.
shut you down. So it's like it could be from the right, it could be from the left. I mean, I've seen it both ways,
Mhm.
and it's ugly from both directions. That's not what this country was meant to be about. And the thing is, if you had 100 uh, discussion sites that were varied and multifarious, then it would be much harder. But if you've only got five, then, like you said, you can get the CEOs all in a room together and, pass the cigars around and say, okay, boys, would you like to stay in business or would you like to go to jail? We can have a little discussion about that.
Mhm.
And when they leave, they're going to tell their minions, okay, this is the marching orders we have been given. And we are not allowed to talk about the Uyghurs anymore. And we're not allowed to talk about global warming or the lack thereof or whatever. It's like we've been given our marching orders and we would like to stay in business. Um, if you had 100 companies that were much smaller, then it would be like herding cats. You would never get them all to be able to enforce things like that. You would be playing that. Then the government would, they might try, but
Mhm.
they would be playing whack-a-mole. It's like going, okay, we're going to stomp this one, but another one pops up and everything. But as it is now, like you said, there's 5 companies. Get them all in one room. Say, hi, here's what's
Hi.
going to happen
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you don't want to go to jail. And being companies, because companies are not human beings, they don't have empathy, they don't have morals. What they have is a drive to make money. That
They
is
have
what they are chartered to do
they
in
have
our society.
shareholders who they're obliged to make profit for.
And, that's not the only way there is to charter a company, but it's the way that we do it in the 21st century. And so they will do what they have to do to continue making money and prospering. And if the government tells them, you will censor these people, you will do this, then, they may squeal a little bit because, well, we're losing this demographic. It's like, you want to lose your entire business
Yeah.
model or you just want
Yeah.
to lose this demographic?
Yeah.
They'll lose the demographic. They'll go along with it. That's been proven over and over again, actually. So it's a very dangerous time in that sense because uh, it's very weird because it seems like we were in a place like that in the 60s and 70s where you only had 3 major networks and PBS that were responsible for most of the news being disseminated. But you also had the fairness doctrine. You had watchdogs that were bipartisan in the sense that really actually meant that back in the day. And so everyone's pretty careful not to be too stupid about it. And all that went away with Reagan. That was, I mean, I was there. I lived through the destruction of the fairness doctrine. And it was really stunning, the, the difference that it made. Um, because now the the people disseminating the news could just do whatever they wanted. And what they wanted to do was make money. And part of that was keeping their shareholders and investors happy. And part of it was keeping the government happy.
Mhm.
And the fairness doctrine was always about keeping the government happy, but there were also all of these multidimensional watchdogs on that. So it actually worked pretty well. But once we decided to let the market take care of it, it went to shit
Yeah.
because there's things the market doesn't do well, and fairness is one of them.
Yeah. Well, this whole phenomenon that you're talking about about only needing to lean on a couple people, um, we saw it in the. I didn't really learn about this till the last year or so, but during World War One, there was something called the Black Chamber, which is just a badass name.
Mm-hmm.
But it was it was the precursor to the office. I think it was the Office of Wartime Censorship. I don't think that's the correct name, but the thing that itself was the precursor to the NSA. So the precursor to the NSA had this sort of black ops side mission in the 1910s called the Black Chamber. Again, just badass. But not a lot of people knew about it. I think Woodrow Wilson and I think like 3 other people knew about it. And you had a handful of agents that came from the Department of Justice in conjunction with the Department of War. That back when that's what the name of the Department of Defense was, and they went
Back when it
to
was honest.
yeah. Um, and what they did, yeah, Department of War was founded on my birthday in the 1700s, August 7th, and the Pentagon was built on 9/11. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Construction either started or finished on September 11th. I don't remember what day. I don't remember what year. I think it was
Well, there's only
45.
365 days in the year, so you're
You
eventually going.
hey hey Raj, you're on thin ice, Bucko. You're on thin fucking ice, all right? We are in the monarchy of Tommy, and what I say, I think it. I don't remember. I think the Pentagon is
Yeah, but I'm
finished.
wearing this shirt.
You run a hard bargain. I think the Pentagon was finished in 47. I think it was finished 47. I think it was 9/11/47. Another weird thing, the conspiracy theories,
Conspiracies.
yeah, conspiracy theorists love is that George H.W. Bush gave a speech for the first time ever mentioning the phrase "a new world order" on September 11th, 1991. 10 years before 9/11. You got to love these retard conspiracies that I love more than anybody. But the point is the Black Chamber went to the head of just the handful of telegram companies. And they did, um, they went to each one and they were like, hey, we need to censor this shit. We got to, it wasn't just censorship because wartime censorship's always been a thing. What they wanted to do is they wanted to do something else. I don't remember what it was, but it was something that was not acceptable. It wasn't just censorship. I think they wanted to be able to decide whether or not messages could even be, it was something weird where basically they wanted control of all the information going in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to each CEO. I think there's like 4 or 5, and they all had great 1910s names. Their names were like Williamson A. Sotomayor, just like like circus names from the 1910s. They each had like 47 syllables, but they went to the heads of each one, and each one said, "No, we will not participate. That's a violation of the First Amendment, and we're a private company." So the G men got back together, and they were like, "Let's take a different tactic." So they went to each one and said, "Hey, the 4 other companies have agreed to do it. You don't want to be the only unpatriotic company, do you?" And like dominoes, they all said yes. All the while, they had all said no individually, but they just told everyone
Yeah,
else, hey, this is what everyone else is doing.
which is classic cop behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, your companions have turned on you. You can
Yeah.
save yourself.
That's what they said to me in 2011 when me and my friends got in trouble in our fraternity. We got in trouble with the cops and I got interrogated. And the first thing they did is, your buddy just pinned it all on you. And that's when I instantly realized, I was like, oh, this is all horseshit. Nothing's going to happen. And I was like, no, he didn't. and I make myself sound cooler. I was probably shitting my pants, but that's another podcast for another time. But the point is they repealed that. They stopped doing that censorship right after the war ended. Obviously, the Department of Censorship or the Office of Censorship started up again during World War II. It ended soon after, and but the point is it in Shadow Factory, the ultra secret post 9/11 National Security Agency by James Bamford, a book that was written in I think 2003, but still holds up. It's a fantastic audiobook. They basically did the same thing. They went to the heads of like Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, and like the other like one
Mm-hmm.
or two companies, and they were like, "Hey, you got to do this." But they didn't go. They kind of went in. They didn't go in necessarily threatening, but they were like, "Hey, for God and country," and they're like, "We are on orders from George W. Bush. You know, help us, avenge 9/11." Which,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you not get caught up in it, right? It's, but that's when those things started.
And
Where,
that was pretty much what Snowden said.
well, that's exactly what Snowden said, and
Uh,
that's my point.
yeah.
Is once these systems get put in place, and it's very easy when there's only a handful of companies, like what the NSA would do. I mean, it's evil, but at the same time, it's kind of badass. Is they went to the heads of like a couple of these buildings in the United States. I think it was Atlanta, Miami, L.A., Seattle, and maybe New York, where they had these big buildings where the transoceanic cables came in, and they would
I
go
think
in.
one of them was in San Francisco too.
I think that's it. And they went into the buildings where they were, and the NSA actually took their own room within the building, and they put metal plating on the floors, walls, and ceilings. So if you went upstairs and tried to drill through the drywall, you hit metal. So they made these metal capsules within the buildings, and they had these big orange doors, and it required like four guys to open it. They opened in a weird way, but these things were top secret. You couldn't ask what was going on inside, and you couldn't even acknowledge that these orange rooms existed.
Mm.
But when you only have five companies that you need to lean on, with five companies, you can go intercept the communications of 300 million Americans. So
Yeah. You're only supposed to get what's international, but what you actually get is all of it.
and the thing is that never stopped. We didn't stop after we killed
Mm-hmm.
Saddam. We didn't stop after bin Laden. It's been almost 10 years since we killed bin Laden, which is kind of crazy, but it's been almost 10 years and it hasn't stopped. And it's, I believe it's either the late Obama administration or the early Trump administration. Either way, I think it was Obama, but Trump didn't stop it, so he's no better. They repealed the Smith-Mund uh, Authorization Act, Smith MUNDT, Smith-Mund. And what the Smith-Mund Act was passed right after World War II, saying that you can no longer do propaganda on domestic citizens. You can no longer use propaganda, kind of like the yelling fire in a theater. During World War II, we got to paint the Japanese as like, oh, we kill America, because we got to rile up support for the war. But they stopped doing that in I think late 45 or late 47. And that was called the Smith-Mund Act. But the reality is that it happened at the end of every war. It happened right after World War One. I think it happened after the Civil War, where you basically
Mm-hmm.
just you cut off the censorship. It was the late Obama, which I'm almost sure of, but I don't want to get it incorrect. Regardless whether or not I think it was Obama, but again, Trump didn't repeal it, so he's no fucking better. Is they got rid of that act very quietly, that you don't have to, that you no longer have to refrain from using propaganda on United States citizens. So when you mix all of these things together, with only needing to lean on a couple corporations, using fear like Patriot Act with insects, and then repealing the Smith-Mundt Act, we get to this very hairy place where I would like to think it's just some big corporations that have way too much data to sort through. But history also shows us that the government, and this isn't a Republican or Democrat thing, but government in general, dude, these are some slippery, slimy, power hungry psychopaths.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I mean,
I don't think it.
I, I was very disappointed in Obama. Several of the things that everyone thought he would probably do that he could have done that he didn't do. he didn't end the war. He didn't uh, introduce a number of legislative initiatives that he was really expected to. He was very tentative, and it may have been because he was super sensitive about being the first black president. He didn't want to push too hard or something. But that's one of the things I like about Biden, because Biden has just been like, nope, fuck it. It's like you guys. It's like, you know, they were all crying in their the Republicans are all crying in their beer about how they're passing laws and they're not even asking us about it. And it's like Merrick Garland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, it's like,
Hey
what were
man.
you saying?
Hey
Merrick
man.
fucking Garland. What were you saying?
Hey man.
And
I'll eat my words with, or not eat my words. I'll eat my ego. I 100% am on board with Biden's Pacific Deterrence Initiative, and it's the placement of intermediate nuclear missiles on islands surrounding China.
yeah, he's not like a fucking pacifist or
Well,
anything.
that's what I
He's
mean.
like,
Is
no, he's
I'll eat my slice of
uh,
humble pie. That's what I
now
like to.
think about this. He's with the generals when they say, all right, we need nuclear deterrence because the Soviets are like acting aggressive. The Chinese are acting really aggressive. And, we got to do about the same time. We don't need to be in fucking Afghanistan shy a bunch of fucking goat herders. That's not a thing we need to be doing. That's, and he's just like grandpa saying, okay, no, this don't make no sense. This does make sense. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. And I'm fucking president. So, I mean, we haven't really seen that in a very long time. I mean, I'm thinking it's like Truman and Eisenhower, where you would see the president going, no, okay, y'all's the generals. I'm the president. And this is what we're going to do because I'm the president. And,
J,
oh,
J, gotta give credit to
it's
JFK.
like,
Gotta give credit to JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The generals
oh,
wanted to go.
JFK, of course.
The generals wanted to go
Of
in and
course.
bulldoze Cuba, and JFK stuck up to them. Yeah, man. I'll be the first to eat my slice of humble pie. Just like I can't stand when people say Trump didn't do anything right. That's objectively untrue. You can't say Biden's doing nothing right as conservative. The Pacific Deterrence Initiative. Look it up. If you didn't know it was Biden, you would have thought Trump passed it. It's objectively a good thing, and I'm not going to sit here and try to say, oh, he didn't
Or
do
a
it.
Bush.
Exactly. It doesn't matter who. That's the point. Is it doesn't matter who. It's so I got to give credit where credit's due. It's an objectively good thing. But Roger, let's wrap this one up because my internet's shit in the bed, and I think my computer's about to implode. So let's wrap this one up. We'll get back to it next
we can't
week.
have that.
No, we'll get back to it next week. Hopefully I'll have internet by then.
And text me an address. I'll send you this shirt.
Absolutely. I absolutely will. Roger Williams, author of Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, my favorite book, the link of which will be in the description. Won't be sticky in the top comment because I can't sticky because we're not on YouTube because they're a bunch of communist assholes. But until next time, brother.
So where will we be found? This is gonna be like Rumble and
BitChute. Well, actually, I only have a couple gigs on my hotspot, so I'm using it to do the Zoom interviews, and then I'm only gonna upload Spotify because audio files are only like 80 to 100 megabytes. I have to stretch out.
Right.
I have to stretch out my hotspot gigs until I get internet. So I'm not even uploading video until I get internet. So this will be on Spotify.
All right. Shoot me a link so I can send it to my dad.
As always, Roger Williams. Much love, my friend. I'll text you my address, and I'll see you next week. All right, dog. Peace.